Alrighty everyone, welcome back to Nightreign and welcome to the first character guide in my new series where I'm going to be looking at these Nightfarers in extensive detail, looking at their movesets, their passives, their abilities, their ultimates, their weapons, their preferred weapons, alternatives, relics, and even boss matchups and builds as well. All of that because I wanted to update the previous character guides since we got new tools and ways to play them. What better way to do that now than also including the two new characters that we got recently in the DLC. And yeah, after all that, I'm going to show you a full expedition where you can see all of the things in practice and see what to do and not to do when you're playing these characters, especially in solo, but these things will also be applicable in trios. So hopefully you enjoy, and let's get started. So the first episode is Scholar. There's a lot of things to talk about here and a lot of little details as well. So let's start with the moveset. I really like it, and the thrusting swords have always been kind of this elegant class for characters. And the light attacks lend themselves very well to status effects, and the heavies, what I like about them is that they have a lot of forward momentum. So you can make some distance, dodge an attack, and then come back in. The dodging lights as well have a lot of good tracking forward, so it lets you turn around like this, where someone like Recluse with similar floaty dodge will struggle to get the hit in. So all those little things help. And besides the faint heavy that you might also have, you do have a faint light. And this one has iframes. So as you can see, there you go. Now it might look like it's just because I'm staggering him, but I assure you I've dodged a bunch of bosses with this. Though I will say, honestly, accidentally, because there you go. It's extremely difficult to actually get the timing right. Very few iframes. But you do get a special backstep attack, as you can see here, and this is also cancelable. And you can do it from here, so you can do something silly like this. And just have fun with them. There's a lot of skill expression here. It's a high skill ceiling character, so I like that the moveset does actually reflect that. Now we can move on to the consumables. This is the whole part of the passive. What you do with the passive is you have more stacks, I guess, or more items per stack of the item, and then you level them up by using them. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the categories of the items are not all created equal. So let's look at them. Greases are pretty self-explanatory. If you had already liked greases to begin with, you're gonna like greases anyway, so might as well go use them. I really like the status effect greases for obvious reasons, and you can spend the normal elemental greases to level up. So any category going forward, there should be a feeding item to level up your items, and then there should be a hoarding item for very special occasions. So for example, the one category that I really like are the pots. And I've done pot only runs in Elden Ring and everything. I really like them. I know how they work. The fire pots are practically infinite. There's an infinite supply of them, and they cost 2400 one full stack. You can use fire pots to level it up, and then use whatever other pots you might find during your expedition to use on the Night Lord. So rot pots for Hellstore, for example, swarm pots for, I don't know, Jaw or whatever, fetid pots to debuff the enemy, that kind of stuff. We're gonna go over the categories and what they actually do. But keep in mind that any category you choose has to have those two items. Sometimes they're one and the same. So sometimes you just have such a ubiquity of the item like fire pots where you use it to level up, then you also use it for the Night Lord, and that's totally fine. Sometimes they're different, right? Sometimes like food buffs, you're going to want to use silver pickled fowl feet to level up your category, and then you want to use boiled crabs for the Night Lord, and you want to hoard all the boiled crabs you can find. Or sometimes a category might not have one or the other. So a category that might not have really good spending items is like the rocks. You might want to use all the rocks. I know a lot of people like the warming stone. I personally don't use it that much, but you might not want to use it as soon as you find it, right? You might want to save it for something. Same as the starlight shards. If you don't find value in these items, instead you don't have anything else to use because these other items are rare. There's multiple ways to go about this. So let's start with greases. Greases are the simplest. They just kind of get a damage buff at level 3. No like duration buff, no like elemental resistance or anything like that. It's just a damage buff as far as I can tell. And so yeah, you want to use the elemental greases to get levels for the status effect greases for obvious reasons. We are a status effect character, whether we like it or not. And getting a rock grace for Hellstore is going to be huge because it's the only status effect he's not immune to. Next, the reusable items. They take quite a while. All the offensive items need a target to actually register as a use. And these ones take quite a while to level up because they're so easy to level up. And the reward is you do more damage. Now for knives. These ones are a little bit more complicated. So fan daggers are fantastic, but they're super rare in my experience. I mostly find crystal darts or throwing daggers, and they don't do that much damage by themselves. They also don't have hidden mechanics that the fire pots do, so I end up not really liking them as much as other people. Especially the kukri. The kukri have very little tracking. They struggle to actually hit enemies, and if you use them up close, you'll find that it has a very long animation. So I personally don't really like daggers, despite fan daggers being a fantastic option. Next, Physicks. So Physicks are pretty varied, but they're also very rare. At this point, I should note that if you have any relic effect that gives you a full stack of items at the start of the expedition, you get the expanded stack. This will help these Physicks and also the perfumes far more than other items because they have very stingy requirements and they are also extremely rare. So if you really want to specialize exclusively on Physicks, you should consider using relics that have those effects. So the Physicks will give you the same effect as Godric's Great Room. It just gives you attributes at level 3. Nothing too crazy, not really impactful. 5 levels in Vigor is the same as the Knight of the Fathom relic, but if you really like HP, especially on this character that's very squishy, that is an option. And like I said, you can use relics to help yourself out. Now, are there spending crystal tiers depending on your value? Honestly, you can use the leaden, you can use the windy to just spend it, you can use the twicky, and then keep the valuable ones like the hard tier, the opening bubble tier. They're both very, very strong. Something like the Crimson Spill, for example, or the Green Burst. These are generally valuable, the ones that you used to use in Elden Ring basically constantly, and they're just as valuable here. So try to save these for the final fight. Next up, we have Perfumes. Now, these are far more restrictive because they need 6, I think, in total to level up, and they are just as rare. But you can carry 4. Spark Aromatic just gets extra damage as far as I can tell. Poison Spray Mist gets fire effects, and the buffing aromatics will make you explode once the effect runs out. Not in a I'm gonna take damage explosion, but just like a big AoE comes out of you and you harm things around you, if that makes sense. Now, are there spending aromatics here? Not really. They're all very valuable depending on what you're trying to look for, but in that case, also whatever else you might not value, you can just spend. So it's very, very simple to do so. That being said, I don't like the Orange Jar aromatic, especially for this character, because you're already squishy, and the added defenses is not worth the crippling mobility that you get. Same with the Blood Boil. Extra attack is nice, but I'm also gonna get one shot even more than I already am, so I really don't like the Blood Boil. Except maybe if I'm in a team and I know they're gonna hold aggro. Next up, we have Boluses. These are very simple. They just give you added resistances in the specific status effect, and they're found everywhere. Like, you just flip a stone, you'll find 10 of them. And you can actually farm Boluses with the Wormface boss. So yeah, just use them. Next up, the food buffs. These are nice because, like I mentioned, there are good feeding items and good hoarding items. So the silver pickled foulfoot is going to give you the effect of the gold, and the gold is going to give you the effect of the silver, vice versa. The boiled prawn and the boiled crab are going to give you max HP. The pickled turtleneck is going to give you max stamina. And the exalted flesh is actually going to buff affinity attacks. So if you have items conferred to teammates, this is going to be very helpful for your recluse, your revenant, your duchess, all those characters that use a lot of elementals. Then we have the rocks. This is kind of the miscellaneous category because there's a lot of things here. We have some offensive rocks that get increased damage, increased projectile numbers, that kind of stuff. We've got the Gravity Stone fans that spawn from the Gravity Stone peddlers near craters. The Glintstone ones spawn in mine shafts. If you have a Shifting Earth event that removes either of those 2 features from the map, you do not get a compensated spawn somewhere else. They just disappear. So keep that in mind if you like these items. Next, we have the Warming Stone. This one is interesting, but a little bit controversial for me. So the Warming Stone will freeze the timer on a revive when you have it leveled up. But I have to ask, because the highest value that you get from this is when your teammate has gone down at least 3 times very quickly. Because obviously 1 bar is very easy to clear. 2 bars, that is also value for the Warming Stone. But 3 bars is where it gets really difficult to revive someone, especially with the boss aggro on you. So I have to ask, is it worth carrying the Warming Stones to help revive someone once they've already shown they're not really good at the game? Sorry, no offense. Or would it have been better to give him a boiled crab to then give him HP and give him defenses? And the answer to that question only you can answer, but I put the idea out there. I'm not a big fan of Warming Stones. I know I see them kind of like an emotional support stone for a lot of people, where just being a little bit more careful during the boss fight would have stopped you from needing a Warming Stone. But yeah, you know, if you like it, go ahead and use it. It is valuable. I personally don't find it very useful. And finally, for the stones, we actually do have the Starlight Shards, which is all the way up here. The Starlight Shards will give you max FP up, so it's huge. And this goes into one of the relic effects that we're going to touch on that increases your mind, but I already have practically infinite FP, what with my maximum FP up and my Starlight Shards giving me FP and that kind of stuff. So it's yeah, it's quite a lot of FP. And finally, the pots. Like I said, the fire pots is just hard carrying this whole category. Fire pots are infinite. Fire pots are cheap. Fire pots are good in their own right. They will stagger a lot of things, including cavalry bosses, so like Draconic Tree Sentinel and Loretta. Lightning pots hit twice. Most other pots, excluding the sleep pot, get bigger AoEs. Sleep pots can refill a little bit of your FP bar. It's just kind of funny the way they designed this because Starlight Shards do it better. So it's just kind of weird. Fetid pots also debuff your enemy. And then the luring pots, quite frankly, they're useless. Now, the fire pots staggering enemies, I think, is important because we're going to talk about the ability next. So the way I see this character built up best, and the way I think is going to end up being built for high depth gameplay, is being able to negate enemy combos that might one-shot you or your teammates. It's not aerial denial, but it's kill denial, I guess. Here's what I mean by that. And it goes back to the skill. So if you press left trigger before halfway through the scan, you will get an attack debuff on the enemy, which is fantastic. If you get a double scan, surprise, surprise, you get a double debuff. If you get a full charge, you get a defensive debuff for the enemy, which also, well, lets them take more damage, but it's only for 1 hit, so keep that in mind. Any instance of damage will get rid of this, by the way, so be careful. The one instance I found very useful for this is when the boss is getting reposted. So usually for big bosses, what happens is you stab them, that deals damage, and then you pull out your sword, that deals the most damage. So if you time it right between those 2 stabs, you can get the boss to take a lot of damage from that big hit. The flip side is pressing right bumper, or sorry, right trigger. So 1 stack will give you 1 stack of stamina, and a double charge will give you a double stack of stamina. And then the full charge is the deflect bubble, or what I call the parry. So this lasts 1 full second, and it's essentially what it sounds like. You just parry 1 instance of an attack. It does not parry multiple things, and it forces a knockdown the same way an ultimate forces like a stun or a recoil, I guess, if you want to call it that. So keep that in mind, that enemies and bosses that don't care about that animation Elemer, they will not get recoiled. So be careful parrying around them. This is great because it interrupts things you think of an ultimate interrupting. So charges, you know, cavalry bosses like Draconic Tree Sentinel, AoEs like the Urchi Avatar's Butt Slam, you can just parry them and you help your entire team. Between the debuffing, between your buffing your teammates with attacks, with defenses, with HP, and you being able to interrupt enemies, you have the best denial character. Frankly, in many games, honestly, this is like the most complete denial character I can think of right now off the top of my head. Regardless of if you're a full support or if you're a full damage dealing scholar, try to use all of your kit all the time. I it might be complicated, it might be difficult, but the more you learn, the better you are. This character has a very high skill ceiling, so try to use it as best as you can, and don't neglect any attribute here. Don't neglect the debuffs, the buffing your teammates, the parrying, because all of these things combined is what makes you a really good character. Finally, the ultimate. This ultimate is as impactful, I think, as the Recluse ultimate. So what happens is you and your teammates affected will get linked, and all the enemies affected will get linked. So you will get healing by attacking enemies, and the enemies will get shared damage. And that's it. That's pretty much the ultimate. It's a very simple ultimate, but it's impactful in the way the entire fight is going to go after that one. So before we leave the sparring grounds, I wanted to talk about weapons. You already have the best weapons in the game, which are the thrusting swords. You have the Ansper rapier. You have bleed options with infusibles. You have frostbite options with a needle or infusibles. You have poison options. You basically have all of Exodia here. The only other Dex scaling class that does this are the daggers. You get the Scorpion Stinger, you get Reduvia, you get HP burn with a black knife. If you're wondering about dormant power, that kind of stuff, I've already made a video on it for Deeper Night. It's still applicable here, so we can mention very quickly the heavy thrusting swords. The katana are really good, reapers are really good. Pick your poison, literally, and just have fun. Really try things out and test. So before anyone asks, I will say I'm not running Deeper Night Relics right now because I'm not planning on playing Deeper Night for a while. The build variety of Deeper Night, which was centered around all the special character relics, now that they've been freed and put over in the base game, makes Deeper Night just kind of redundant. There's even less of a reason to play Deeper Night right now. The only thing that you have is like one character specific relic per character that you could get, and the rest are very generic things. Even before the update, this was already the case. A lot of depth 5 players, myself included, ended up just going for comfort picks. Oh, what do I take for Guardian, guys, for my Deeper Night build? Guard counters +2. Like, no shit, bro. So yeah, just take whatever you want in here. I'm not gonna mention it really. I'm just gonna mention this disclaimer in the videos. But if you came here for Deeper Night Relics, dude, just pick whatever you want. Sorry. I'm also going to mention the things that I think are important, but you'll also find some effects in here that I don't mention. These are wildcards. Things that if you have and you like, you're happy. If you have and you don't like, they're not going to affect you negatively. So for example, this randomized relic is Vigor +1 and Chilling Mist. This Chilling Mist could have been a Hoarfrost Stomp, or it could have been Starting Armament starts with Poison. There are various things that you can fit in your relic setup depending on what you have available with your relics. So we're talking about Evergel meta, Invaders meta, successive attacks. You can just replace a full relic with the glass necklace if you really want to. Improved crits, starting status effects, change the Ash of War, character skill cooldown, whatever, honestly. They're just there for wildcards. Now let's look at the character specific relics. These are rather interesting. I've made a whole video about the prevent slowing character skill progress, so go check that out if you want to know the details. I don't think it's very valuable, so we move on. The allies targeted get 20% attack buff. Huge. If you're playing support or any kind of support scholar, this is a must. Next, earn runes for additional specimen. This is an individual rune gain per enemy scanned. It's not that valuable for me personally because I've never fallen behind teammates. In fact, I just over level mostly, so I don't need more runes. I just buy the shit that I need, and I don't buy any more. I never lose a level because I bought something, essentially. Continuous damage on ultimate art. It's a must. Any single scholar build needs this. Improved minor reduced vigor. Because of the aforementioned, like, starlight shards and stuff like that, I don't see the point in this. You already have enough FP. I don't want to get one shot any more than I'm already getting one shot, so don't worry about that. And then dexterity. Now, this one's going to be a little bit controversial. Hopefully not, because I've been hearing this kind of talk constantly in every single character game where it's like, why use X character when Y character exists? And the only human answer is because I want to use the first one. Are you stupid? But then also, the real technical answer is that characters have defining characteristics, turns out, that differentiate them. So people will be comparing Dexterity Scholar with Executor and think it's a one-to-one comparison. Everything that I talked about Scholar is just something that Executor just can't do. Executor can't interrupt a worm charging like that. Draglord or Hellstore for the entire team. Executor can't buff them with max HP and defenses and all of these things and plus 20 attack boosts. So why are you comparing them? It's just something that I've never understood. And likewise, we'll see in the executive video, he does things that Scholar can't do. So it's just nonsensical. I personally like Dexterity Scholar for solo play because it lets me be more aggressive against bosses like the Blackblade Kindred that are immune to status effects. If you find that valuable, if you find consistent damage regardless of what enemy you're looking at valuable, this is a valuable relic. And lastly, the reduced FP consumption is a Deepenite only relic, so it's pretty good. If you roll it, go ahead and use it. So we're going to look at unique relics now. The first one is his Remembrance Relic. These are the Cleansing Tier and the Note to Successor. These are both very good. If you don't have anything else, they fit very nicely in the support build I'm going to be showing you. We have improved affinity on top of that, defeating enemies fills, art gauge, and then character skill cooldown. These are all fantastic. Next, with the Signboard Relics, we have 4 that are generally applicable. So the Earned Runes I already said I'm not a big fan of, but this one has 2 small pouches, so you might find value in that. We then have the Mind one, which I don't understand. We have the Dexterity one, which I already talked about. And finally, we have items conferred to teammates and small pouch at the start of the expedition. This one's fantastic and the one I'm rocking for my support build. You do have to defeat an Everdark, I think, with Scholar to get this one. So if you find that too difficult, or you haven't gotten around to that, or it's just not available right now because you're starting out for some reason, you can use the Night of the Fathom one. It's probably the earliest instance of this kind of effect to get items good for your teammates, and you get a little bit of HP from that, and then you can compensate maybe buying a small pouch in game. So with all of that being said, let's look at the builds. I have 2 builds for you today. The support build has everything that I might want for team play. I can boost my teammates with items. I have enough space for those items. I have a little bit of status effect. Specifically, Frostbite is really good because it makes everything deal 20% extra damage to the boss. We have the continuous damage inflicted on threaded enemies, which is great. And then we have the Remembrance Relic, which again, 20% extra damage to your teammates, character skill cooldown. Practically, if you were to swap the first one with the Cleansing Tier, these are all guaranteed relics as well, so give it a try. The second one is my solo build. I have a little bit of partial restoration and defeating enemies. The art gauge is the one you're gonna see in the gameplay section, but I was using a different second relic there. And this one, likewise, if you have the Cleansing Tier instead, it's basically all guaranteed relics, though you will have to defeat an Everdark with Undertaker for the middle one, or if you have something similar on a blue color, or you can swap out the colors, whatever you might have. This is a fantastic one as well. And with that being said, let's talk a little bit of the matchups and let's go on to the expedition. So we're back fighting Dreadlord. Those are the relics. I kind of talked about them. The second one was going to be a little bit different. But in fighting Dreadlord with a bunch of the other characters, because I'm going to be fighting Dreg with half the roster and Valkyries with the other half, just to a little bit of variety. I realize how privileged Scholar and Executor are in actually fighting Dreadlord, so honestly, it feels good to fight him, even though he hits like a dump truck. So I wanted to talk a little bit about matchups for the DLC characters, since you know we maybe not have had time to fight all the bosses with them, especially Everdarks. I did manage to fight Everdark Gladius and Everdark Maris, I think, were the ones available during that week. And yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the matchups besides just the regular old roster that I did also fight. So starting from the top, Gladius was an interesting fight. I think it's very difficult, probably the worst matchup. He counters your Molotov spam, your Firebomb spam, and they just kind of maul you, which I think is to be expected because they maul everyone. But that also means that your ult effect is like inconsistent, really. I found that sometimes one of the dogs kind of slept out, just wasn't affected by the ultimate, or like 2 of them like ran away or stuff like that. So I don't know. They can hang back as well. It can be annoying. So keep that in mind. As for the Bloodhound Knight currently being fought, you can see just how useless Kukri are at like actually hitting something. And some of the bosses are just gonna be like this for most projectiles. They're really, really annoying. So be careful about that whenever you're fighting something with like throwing knives, fire bombs, you know, throwing rocks, whatever. And yeah, big minus points. He is also very difficult to hit with projectiles to begin with, but yeah, Bloodhound Knight, kind of annoying. I did him first before the Golem because I knew it was a Golem. So I wanted to hopefully fight him at level 4 and kill him faster because he's terribly annoying. But I made a misplay of using knives because after this, I didn't find a single other knife, by the way. So yeah, probably a misplay. Fire bombs for life. But you'll see how I absolutely botched this fight here. I am scanning basically every enemy that I can. And the reason for that is I got told that it helps your initial scan time. Like it makes your scan go faster the more enemies you scan. But truth be told, I didn't really see a difference. So, you know, there might be a real difference, but it might not be a practical difference, if that makes sense. I didn't feel like it ever really helped me in any significant way. Even if, yeah, maybe the bar started at 10% instead of 0, or 20% instead of 0. But all of that really did not help me too much whenever I parried. But yeah. So going back to the bosses, I think Jaw and Pests are overall pretty fine for him. Augur is also easy, but you don't have anything to interrupt her sleep attack. So if you don't have lightning damage, say a lightning pot or a lightning weapon, you're in for a bad time. So more so than anyone else, I think lightning damage is very important for Scholar. And for any Nightfarer that doesn't have an interrupting ult, which I've talked about in the previous guides that we're updating. Interrupting ults are very, very premium. They just help you kind of ignore whatever the boss is doing. So, yeah. As for Libra, I know people are excited about the ultimate being used on Everdark Libra. I have to question why would you fight Everdark Libra to begin with, but you know, it's fine. And you can use it, you get a lot of value out of it, but besides that, the fight is okay. You can't stop him from buffing like the normal version, and everything else is kind of like the same. The status effects do very well, fire bombs do very well, so yeah. Centaur is another really good one, and Caligo is probably the easiest matchup because you just throw fireballs at her. You don't need to worry about parrying, you don't need to worry about timing your ultimate. You just kind of throw fireballs at her until she gets debuffed and then throw some more. So all of that is pretty good. Then the DLC bosses. Valks are kind of humanoid Gladius, if you really pay attention to it. And we'll see some of them in this section because we get invaded by them. But they can kind of maul you. Again, just like Gladius, they can also ignore your ultimate, like they can dodge it accidentally. Because a lot of them will try to run away from you if you get close to them. A lot of them will also kind of teleport behind you and try to silently grab you, by the way, which is a great mechanic, Smile. And yeah, so your ultimate is inconsistent, and status effects are also inconsistent, I found out. Sometimes you can just proc Rot in like 2 hits, and then the next time it takes like 12, 14 hits to actually proc Rot. Something about the main Valkyrie makes it very difficult to actually proc Rot. So here I'm buying some fire bombs for the upcoming fight. You'll see a very neat shortcut here, which I think is pretty common nowadays. But it just helps you get up to the boss fairly quickly. Let's talk about the Balancers event, I guess, now that we're talking about Balancers. I don't particularly like it, really. Like, depending on where she spawns, or where they spawn, because it's 2 of them, it can be a cakewalk, or it can be the worst experience of your life. In this case, this one was okay-ish. I've had easier ones. And then the second one you'll see is absolutely abysmal. It's one of the worst experiences ever. So I don't really like it. The fact that they also steal a flask from you is like whatever. Once you do kill her, the enemies that were affected by her get a big debuff in terms of defenses and attacks. So it's not all terrible, but trying to focus her, especially in the gank fights, because she likes to spawn wherever there's a gank fight for some reason. They can be really annoying. You'll see a gank fight very soon. And finally, to close out the DLC, the one we're fighting today is Dreadlord. Dreadlord is kind of wrecked by status effects and fire bombs, but at the same time he hits very hard. So I'll talk about it a little bit when we're actually fighting him, but he wants you to be aggressive, but at the same time kind of punishes aggression. So it's something I need to work over. But overall, I really like the fight, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but Scholar and Executor are really privileged with being able to parry a bunch of his crap, so really nice. And finally, to close out all the bosses, Hellstore. I think Hellstore is just pretty box standard. This is John Nightreign. You get really good value for your parries, and he's immune to everything but rot, so you have a huge upside with being able to Scarlet Rot him, so bonus points for that. Okay, so now we're going on to the second invasion event. This one went worse because I didn't buy fire bombs, and honestly, being level 7, I should have 100% fought them with fire bombs. But part of me thinks I picked up the Wraith Calling Bell to show that off instead of the fire bombs, because I didn't want everything to be just pure fire bomb spam. Turns out I should have known better, and I should have just spammed fire bombs instead, because this is one of the worst experiences I've had in quite a while. A 3 Omen and this woman that just kind of wants to stall you out. It's just the worst experience known to man or beast. And she just backsteps you. You can't hit her. The other guy wants to kill you because, you know, he's a bigot, I guess. I don't know. So I'm trying to use the Spirit Calling Bell to get a little bit of damage in. But she just, look at that. Instantly hit her and she backsteps. Just incredible. Incredible game design, really. And this would have been solved by having fire bombs. But yeah, this one was terrible. And the more I use the Spirit Calling Bell, the more aggressive they got, because that's just the way they're also designed. So, yeah. Not a good time. Help me! Help! We finally get out of that corner, and we bleed her. And then the rest here is just popping ult. Now the ult really saved me here. It gave me all of the HP back, and it let me just kind of back off. Now that she's dead, again, they get debuffed, so just spamming a bunch of bells at them will kill them. And that is basically everything for day 1. So it's all about picking up some more passives. I do think I kill a Demi-Human Queen. I kill an Omen in an Everjail. Besides that, really nothing of value happened here. It was just kind of like collecting things. You'll notice I didn't pick up a Wending Grace and I hovered over it though. I was a little bit concerned about getting a difficult day 1 or night 1 boss fight. I ended up getting one with Regalia or Ralva, whichever it is. But we managed to pull through. And I'll actually just let this gameplay run a little bit faster than usual, just to keep things moving. This video is already long enough, but just so you can see the cleaning out process, and then I'll come back for the night 1 boss fight. Alright, so we're here with bears, a bunch of bears. And this one is dangerous. Regalia is probably one of the toughest fights, just from sheer numbers. I've been one-shot by her by the double swipe that she does with the air jutsu thing. You'll see it soon in this fight. But yeah, Rugalia is, man, just a difficult boss fight. You have to be very careful. And I've seen a lot of people get wrecked by Rugalia. I think she has the highest chance, besides like Elemer maybe, she has the highest chance of a night 1 boss to just one-shot you. So, yeah, a little bit concerning. And she buffs herself, which is great. The longer you take with this fight, the more likely it is to die. So you can see, like, without any buff, she's already nearly one-shotting me. And with the buff, you don't even want to know. You can get her a buff like 3-4 times. I think it's infinite, actually. It's just a ticking timer. It's a DPS check, so you better have some kind of DPS. Thankfully, most characters can deal with this, but imagine if you get Rugalia in depth 5. You know, have fun with that no-hit attempt. So whenever she roars, which is her buffing herself, you have a good chance of throwing some fire bombs at her. And you can jump over the ground waves as you saw, but soon enough you'll see the double swipe. Yeah, that's the one that can one-shot you. I've been one-shot even... Oh, well, I wasn't really one-shot. I was like 3/4 HP, and she got me with Raiders, so... She's not good, dude. She's not good. So again, we're gonna have another big section here of just like collecting stuff. So there's really no important thing to talk about here. So I'll let it run for a little bit because quite honestly, I've talked quite a bit already. But you can just kind of see what I'm doing. I will say though, while this is running, that I have been trying to scan a lot of things, and even if the scan thing is not practically useful, just having a bunch of stamina up more often is. So I do encourage you to scan as many enemies as you can and try to self buff, because you never know, you might be close to an Evergaol or something and you just started the fight with a bunch of stamina, and maybe you caught a teammate with your scan, so you also start the fight with like 20% extra damage. All those things will help out, so it's a positive. So on to the next major fight, and this is the Black Blade Kindred. So this is a good fight to just showcase the value of, well, firebombs again, but also the dexterity relic, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this amount of damage if I didn't have this amount of dex. So I really like this dexterity, especially for single player, where I don't have a teammate to like carry me in terms of raw damage. Because if I didn't have the Dex Relic and I just relied entirely on status effects to deal my damage, obviously something immune to everything like the Black Blade Kindred is going to take quite a while. And as you know, time is money, and you're kind of wasting both of them at once if you're just not killing bosses fast. So it's a good idea, maybe consider it. I'm even running it sometimes in multiplayer just because I really like the idea of sustainable, consistent damage. So I should have parried more than I actually did, honestly, but it's okay. Just showing off the firebombs more so than anything. At the end, I do parry him, and you'll notice the stagger is obviously helpful. It stops a full combo, And more importantly, it deals a bunch of stance damage, so that lets me get the kill. So a little bit more collecting here, and then we move on to fighting one of the DLC enemies. And I say enemies because if you haven't played the DLC, you might be thinking to yourself while fighting these guys, hey, how the heck did people like the DLC if it had bosses like this? And the answer is they're not bosses. Everyone just ignored them. And that's why we could survive the DLC. These Horned Warriors are some of the worst enemies in the entire game. They will just never stop hitting you. They have hyper armor. They have a bunch of projectile attacks that hit very hard. It's just such a bad time. There's just no... I mean, I'm complaining at this point, but there's just no, like, flow to them. They're just infinite spam, go! And it gets really tiresome really quickly. And guess what? One of them is a night boss, so they're unavoidable, dude. They're great. Yeah, you've probably seen them. You probably fought them. The Curse Blade and Horned Warrior combo. Dude, just nightmare fuel. And so with Loretta, again, just firebombs. It's fantastic. Loretta is one of my favorite bosses, just the way she looks and plays. Not so much in Depth 5. I think that just kind of broke me a little bit. But overall, I do like her. Besides her like true combos and stuff, she's a fun boss to fight. Especially with this character though, because you'll see, as soon as she tries to go for phase 2, we just spam her out with fire bombs. And she loses, what's that, 4,000 damage at the end? Something like that, 3,000 and change. 3,500 damage, roughly. Just because she was getting stun locked. And that is one of the biggest value propositions really about the fire bombs. Because Loretta, like all the horsemen, or horsewomen, I guess. She's a horsewoman. She's not a horsewoman. She's a horse rider who happens to be... And listen, they can all one-shot you. So, terrible news for your team, especially if you have squishy teammates like a Recluse or a Revenant. So, being able to interrupt basically any of their attacks is fantastic. And so, we finished the day. I did want to highlight here really quickly, because again, these are just like really simple fights and collecting a bunch of firebombs. But I did want to highlight that the health buff that we get from the Elder Lion actually did clutch up. So, whenever you find HP, even though this character is squishy, and that's why I don't like the other Mind Relic, whenever you find HP, try to get as much HP as you can. Try to get as much defense as you can. It sounds pretty obvious, but you'll be surprised at how many people say, oh, it's a squishy character, I'm gonna get one shot, might as well just never get hit. And that is just such a frustrating mindset, in my opinion. You're just asking to die. But anyway, see ya for the Night 2 fight. Alright, so you didn't need me to beat up a bunch of dudes for ya, because this is the only thing this thing spawns before Artorias. Anyway, this was my first time fighting Artorias solo. I had fought him a couple times with friends, but obviously the trio experience is going to be way different to true solo, where you have the boss's undivided attention, right? And Artorias is, like Artorias has always been, just a stat stick. This guy is really just a DPS check from way back when. He has incredible poise, he has incredible resistances, and he just buffs himself to be even stronger. And in this game, as far as I can tell, it's uninterruptible, because in Dark Souls 1 you were able to interrupt the what do you call it, the buff process, but in this game not so much. So he's gonna backstep usually twice, and then you can throw some fireballs at him. You have to be careful in this game though, because The AoE is massive. I was taken aback by that. I did not expect it. But yeah, he has this new sweet combo. But it's easy to dodge. You can time it yourself. That's the nice thing about these expeditions, more so than anything, I think, that it gives you secondhand like experience, especially if you're not used to or you're not comfortable with playing solo. It just lets you see, okay, how does this interaction go? How do you deal with this character in this situation, kind of deal. And you don't even need to turn on your game for that. It's just very comfy, especially a game like Nightreign, where every single expedition is a 40-minute investment. It's quite a long time, so take advantage of that. Try to see as many things as you might find interesting. Tell you what, the double grab is really nice for just building your ultimate again. So I keep getting pancaked, man. I'm just so out of it. It's incredible. Yeah, he runs away because he's a little bitch to go and buff, but we just kind of kill him. And there you go. So I'm gonna do something really stupid here, and that is go out of the ring to buy more firebombs. And I don't know why I did this, because I just end up replacing one of the stacks I just bought for the Wending Grace in the final shop. So I have no idea, but yeah, don't do this. It is a valuable tactic to know, though, even with the incredible damage that the ring does to you. If it's nearby, say I had missed the Wending Grace, or say I hadn't upgraded a weapon that I think would have been valuable, this is a valid strategy. But in this case, it was just trolling, so keep that in mind. Alrighty, so on to Stragus or whatever. So phase 1, which is, what is it called? Traderus? That's a weird word. Anyway, Stragus is just simple. You can parry a bunch of his stuff like this. They have enough of a startup to actually parry fairly consistently. And most of his attacks are slow and telegraphed, so you don't really have problems. I will say in phase 1, try not to use your ultimate. I do think I use it here because of an emergency. I basically got scooped the fuck up like that, and I almost died. But this comes back to bite me, because your ultimate damages the little dudes, and if he kills his own little dudes, he gets a damage buff. So yeah, don't let that happen if you can, but a certain amount of buffs is just unavoidable with them. So try to kill them as quickly as possible as well, because then the worm faces start spawning, and that's where it gets really, really difficult. So, and you don't want to get burnt out by phase 1, because phase 2 is a whole different can of worms. But besides that, the scoop is the real issue, and I'll just keep repeating this every time you see a scoop. That is one of the most dangerous attacks, because it pulls you towards him, it roll catches you, it deals a lot of damage, it just kind of like ruins your flow. So yeah, besides that, nothing else is like super crazy. Just rotate counterclockwise, I guess, and most of his attacks will either whiff or will be easy to dodge. So we have pure, what's it called? Pure Impulse? Ultra Instinct, I guess? I don't know, man. So his super combo ends with a slam. That's easy to dodge, as long as you're in the epicenter, which is easier said than done in multiplayer, but I believe in you. The missiles, the little shotgun is, or can be annoying, depending on what you're doing. And you'll see me actually just attacking into him fairly often, and that's because I want the debuff. I want to keep him debuffed because that's how you get a bunch of damage in. If you start getting sheepish with this guy, it just drags the fight on for quite a while. So try to be aggressive, even if you're gonna take a hit, you know. We're not going for no-hit attempts or anything. Just be a little bit responsible with when you take a hit, obviously. But most of his little openers like that don't deal that much damage. But you can see the scoop is treacherous, dude. The scoop will maybe get you killed. The double scythe swipe is also dangerous as well. But besides that, you'll see that nothing really hits me unless I make a misplay like that. But that also showcases just how much damage this guy's doing. So for his phase 2.5 ultimate, I just option selected. Really, I really don't feel like dealing with it. So that's what I do. If you don't have an ultimate for it though, you will have to learn how to dodge it or just run away as far as you can. Which I don't recommend because you're just putting yourself out of the fight for quite a while. So I ran away from that one to show you that the animation does change. So he usually does a double slam attack, but if he's far away, he actually throws the poop at you, which is great. And yeah, they have slightly different tells. I'm still not really good at telling which one it is, but they have slightly different tells between the big goop area or the like slam down orb. Speaking of which, there is going to be a goop tower here soon. There you go. Where I accidentally stayed in the goop for too long. I should have just backed off. And I parry on time. But one of the goop ticks actually eats my parry. And that makes me take a whole bunch of damage. I could have died there if I didn't have the taking damage boost damage negation effect, which came from the goop though. And yeah, he's pretty much close to dead. We have a few firebombs. We've been neglecting them though, but that's mostly to show you the rest of the moveset of the boss. And you see the double slam here. You do have to be careful with the little geysers that prop up. But there you go. He's dead. So hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. If you have any more questions about Scholar or any of the other characters, do let me know. More content to come, so stay tuned. And as always, have a good one.